Great. So we have it recording. Excellent. Thank you very much, Joel. So these sessions are going to prepare you to make a good, you're going to have all the information, you're going to have to do the work, but this will prepare you to make a good pitch proposal. And the pitch proposal is due later on. We'll give you the specific dates on that. But if not, you just send it out via email. There's a date calendar that Joel, who works with me, will send out to everyone. The actual pitch day we've scheduled for Joel 16th of November. Yep.
Yes, it is.
Right. Good. So that is that date. So between now and then, what you're working on now is understanding, how do I take my idea? How do I take the idea that I'm thinking of and make it into a very feasible, viable proposal that can potentially win this competition and potentially be something that, who knows, maybe NEDCO or an investor sees it and they become interested and wants to take that further, right? The intention, guys, is for you to become not just winners of a program like this, or eventually get to that stage, but become entrepreneurs. So we do this program, and we've had it some years ago, and we've brought it back. We've brought back this program because it's important, one, to give you guys, student entrepreneurs, an opportunity to formulate your idea and get it supported. Get some support for moving that idea forward and to become that entrepreneur, to start up a business. And the intention is that one of you would be so good that you'd win that prize. But in terms of the next runner-up and the third runner-up or the second runner-up, we would also sort of reward you for your good work. So we do have some prizes being allocated for that as well. So it's a great opportunity. When I was a student at UWI, I don't recall having programs like this, where you could come up with an idea, a business idea, not just any old idea, a good business idea, enter a pitch competition, and come out on top competitively. And the other thing is, even if you didn't win outright, right? It's not about winning or losing. It's about learning, and it's about becoming and developing that entrepreneurial mindset, developing that entrepreneurial and innovative idea that you can take forward. And you never know where you can go with that idea. My job and our job, myself and Joel and my team, is to try to help you to really structure that idea and get opportunities outside of the UWI, outside of this program, that you can take that idea forward and become that entrepreneur that maybe you aspire to be. And it's a good way to go. It's a good road to follow to, graduate out and start your own company. Even if you're working, but, it's not a bad idea to also start your own business if you can, do that. And this is what we do. We sort of help with that. We provide mentorship, we provide training, and we provide guidance, and we provide access to, not just this program, but to other programs. So that's how this is going to go. That being said, I'm going to jump right in to the training session. This afternoon's training session, I want to talk to you guys about the actual idea itself, the innovative idea. How do I take that idea and make it something that I can actually go forward with? And that's what I'm going to speak about. Okay. It's okay, guys, if you have any questions that you want to ask. Usually we want to reserve questions for, later towards the end. But it's okay if you really have a burning question and you want to just jump on the mic and ask it. So that's also all right. The worst case scenario is I'll say, okay, we don't have time, push that question towards the end, or If I do have the time, we'll answer the question one time. Okay? Does anyone have any questions?
No questions from me at the moment. No.
Okay, great. Who was that? Giovanni?
Yes, correct.
Okay, Giovanni, thank you. And this is a small group. I don't see a whole lot of persons in this group. So this is an easy, nice little class. Everybody's probably could get to know each other as they communicate. I see Giovanni, AJ, Chanel, Abram, Renee, Adana, Tiffany, Farah, Kylon, hope I pronounced that right. And is that Elijah? Hope I pronounced that right. Okay, so feel free to chime in if you have any questions. But let's get going. So I'm going to cover idea formation and, more importantly, creating value. What you are proposing in your pitch or as an entrepreneur, when you start a company, it's your value that you offer to customers that you can sell. What value did you create? Making it innovative, unique, creative, that increases the value. Putting features, benefits, and all of those stuff into the idea, that creates value. But at the end of the day, you've created something that is of value. Whether it is a product or a service, it is something that is of value. And that's what you're trying to offer. And I'm going to talk a lot about that. How do you create value? How do you identify what is something, what is valuable? So the first thing I want to start with is the innovation and entrepreneurship process, because then that's going to help you to understand, where do I start to create value? At what stage do I start to do business planning? Or how do I check or test to see if this is something I should go forward with? When does investment happen? When does the actual business launch take place? All of those things are different steps of the entrepreneurship process. And right now, all of you guys are right now at the very early stages of the entrepreneurship process, because you're at the training phase. That's even before step one, what you see on this diagram here. But the various processes, as you see, I have it kind of listed out from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 9. And there are different steps and stages in the entrepreneurship process. Yes, entrepreneurship is a process. It's something that we aspire to do. We aspire to be entrepreneurs. We even aspire to be innovative entrepreneurs, right? But entrepreneurship goes through a series of processes before you can become successful at it. And it starts with number one, which is, well, where you come up with the idea. That's the ideation step. You know, where does that idea come from? And how do I harness it? And how do I know it's a good idea? And do I want to take it forward? Because you're probably not going to have just one idea. You may have about 2 or 3 ideas. So one of the classes that I teach, which is an entrepreneurship class in partnership with a lecturer at the Department of Management, that's Dr. Amkisun. Those students, there's about 200-300 students in that class. It's a large class. This class, this semester is kind of small. It's only like 150 or so. Next semester, it gets pretty large. Those students have to work in groups. And one of the first things they have to do when they start working in groups, because I meet with them, is come up with their business idea. And almost 9 times out of 10, when the students meet with me, they have about 4 or 5 or 6 different ideas, and they're not too sure which one to go with. And it's probably the same for you guys as well, that you're in this program now, you signed up for it, you're registered, and here you are now, and you may be sitting down on 2 or 3 ideas and not too sure which one to go with. Even if you have one idea that you want to go with, you're probably not too sure, well, how do I configure, position, and sort of format it so that this is the form and the step or the form that I want to take this idea forward with. This is how I want to take this idea forward. So we're going to speak about that. But generally, entrepreneurship follows a series of processes, right? Ideation. If you formed your idea clearly enough, in other words, you got to the point where you can clearly define your idea. And I'm going to speak about defining your idea and really refining it down to a finely tuned concept that you can take forward. If you have done that, well, now you have your value proposition. That's step 2. That's what you want to sell. Sometimes, even if you have one idea, and I've met with entrepreneurs even today, where you have a good idea, but that doesn't mean you have something to sell. Your value proposition is what you are offering for sale. It is your proposed value. You are proposing value for sale, and you're offering it to a potential customer segment. You can't sell something that is sort of imaginary or cloudy or not fully formed or not fully defined. If you don't have an idea fully formed and fully defined, specifically, not just generally, specifically, then you don't have specifically a product or service that you can sell, that you can put a price on, and you could quantify how many units of this you will sell every month or every year. So you really have to get to a point where you can define it very clearly. And there's a step after coming up with your value proposition. Once you've defined your idea, in other words, you know exactly what it is. Well, now you want to sort of test it. That's step 3 on the diagram. You want to sort of check it against potential customers to see if that idea that you came up with, that you took the time to refine and define so carefully, you want to make sure that that is something that not only you think is great, but customers also think it's great, and they would be willing to pay money for it. Because when you come up with that idea at first in step 2, that's your theory. That's your hypothesis. That is essentially what you think. Well-formed, well-defined, kudos for that. But that is still generally what you think. You now have to get independent feedback from potential customers. And that's where market testing your idea comes in. I'm going to encourage all of you, when you come up with your idea, do some market testing of the idea. And I'm going to show you how to do that. When you do your pitch proposal in a couple of weeks, one of the criteria that the judges are going to be looking for is, well, did you market test that idea? Did you do any research to confirm the validity of that idea in the market environment? And you'd want to be able to explain that, yes, you did that, and here's the results. Okay? So if you look at steps 1, 2, and 3, steps 1, which is you just coming up with the idea. Step 2, which is refining that idea more specifically into a value proposition. Step 3, you sort of now testing that idea, that concept against the potential market to then validate and confirm, yes, you're on the right track. This is indeed a good idea. If you went through that, steps 1, 2, and 3, now you are in a position to develop your business model. And it is your business model that this pitch is all about. This pitch, and not just this pitch alone, guys. Anytime you go in front of an investor or a bank or a business partner or any sort of grant fund agency, anytime you go in front of an entity and you says, I need capital, I need an investment, I need a loan, I need a partner, I need to take this idea forward. Anytime you go in front of a third party trying to get support, grant funding, investment funding, loan financing, anything of that nature, the first thing they ask you for is, well, what's your business plan? Or / your business model? What is this business idea about? Because an idea is just an idea unless you can frame a business plan around it. Unless you can specifically describe that idea, that value proposition, unless you can describe that value in and around a feasible, workable, practical business model, then no investor or finance company or grant funder will want to support that because it has no future. An idea that has no future is just something that is nice to have. It's going to sit on a shelf. It's going to be on display and that's it. It's not going to move from there, right? But when you can take that concept and create a business plan, and I'm going to use the business model canvas to describe your business plan. That's what we're going to teach here. When you can take that idea and create a business model for it, what you're therefore doing is explaining, this is how to implement this idea. This is how to commercialize this idea. And my plan to commercialize this idea shows, you know, these benefits, these financial rewards, this impact, and, you know, I'm demonstrating the feasibility of taking this idea forward. That's what an investor, that's what a grant funder, that's what a bank or a NEDCO or a finance company, that's what they want to hear, that's what they want to see, and that's what they will be willing to support if it's a good one, right? That's what businesses, that's what investors support. They don't support, well, I have an idea, here's what it is. They're not ready for that. It's when you have an idea and you say, here's the business plan for it. That's what entities are going to be willing to support. Okay? All right, let me pause there and take a question or two. Now, when I say I'm going to pause and take a question or two, I'm literally giving you 20 seconds to come up with your questions. Otherwise, I'm moving on. You don't have to throw out a question. I'm just pausing, almost out of courtesy. Yes, Teddy Ann.
Hi, hello, good day. All right, I was just wondering, right, in terms of differentiating yourself, because, you know, sometimes your idea might not necessarily be that novel. How do you put across that, you know, differentiation?
We're going to talk all about that because that's at the heart of this discussion this afternoon. Because if you can't differentiate, then you're basically throwing out an idea that everyone else has, right? So how do you differentiate? How do you find that nugget of uniqueness and novelty that makes your idea stand out? So we're going to speak about that. But what I will say is this, Teddy Ann. If you can't find that uniqueness, that novelty, that innovation, then your idea is, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's basically sitting smack dab in the middle of 100 other ideas just like it. And an investor, a finance company, a grant fund entity, not only do they want to invest in ideas that have a good business plan around it, in other words, a good business model, they naturally gravitate towards ideas that are unique, that are different, that have some novelty on it. Why? Not just for differentiation's sake. Uniqueness and novelty gives the idea competitive advantage. If the idea does not have competitive advantage, you're just one idea amongst 1,000, hoping for the best. When you have competitive advantage, now the idea is more likely to be successful financially and impactful and beneficial to society. If it's not unique, if it's not differentiated, you won't be able to achieve that competitive advantage. So this entire pitch competition, this training that we're doing today is basically all about, well, how do you come up with an idea that is unique, that is competitive? All right, guys? So good question. But I wanna explain the fundamentals first. So that's why I kind of going into these steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, which primarily, that's the main processes that you want to learn at this level. Learning how to do research and development, that will come later. Learning how to do a detailed investment plan with 5-year financial forecast, that will come later. For now, what you want to be expert at is taking a good idea, doing research to stress test the idea, and coming up with a good business model canvas and being able to do a PowerPoint pitch presentation on that. That's what you want to be really good at right now. Okay? Okay, let me move on. So I just mentioned business model canvas, which is step 4, as you can see there. business model canvas. This next slide, this is what a business model canvas looks like, right? This is not the business model canvas class today. That's tomorrow. What I'm giving you is a little sneak peek. This is a preview of what's coming tomorrow, right? So business model canvas looks like this. They all look pretty much like this. Not as spiffy as the one I have on screen. You might see just a plain old, basic one if you Google it right now. But this is essentially what it has, right? It's broken up into a few sections. On one side, you will have all of your marketing stuff. Everything to do with marketing, which is your value proposition, your customer segment, your target customer segment, your customer relation strategy, your marketing and distribution channels, all of those activities that you do, creating the value proposition, that's what you sell, offering it to a customer segment, that's your target customer segment, marketing in it, and advertising using customer relations strategy, advertising strategy that is, and getting it to the customer using certain distribution channels. All of that is marketing. That's basically your marketing strategy. And when you engage your marketing strategy, if you do well, you will earn revenue. That's why the arrow is pointing down towards earning revenue, okay? So in business, whenever you come up with an idea, you're trying to figure out, well, is this idea a good one? Yes. And then who do I target with this idea? Who's my customers? How do I market to them? How do I get it to them? And how much revenue can I earn? So this is what you sell, who you sell to, how you'll advertise, where you'll advertise, and where will they be able to buy. That's what one side of the business model canvas looks at, right? Before I go to the other side, central to your market strategy, at the heart, at the core, fundamental to any good business and any good marketing plan is the relationship between your value proposition and your customer segment. Whenever you come up with an idea, the first thing you must think of is who are the customers that will want that idea. When I say who, I literally mean, well, what's the profile of persons who will typically be interested in this value proposition that you have to sell? Where do they live? What's their age? Are they male or female? Do they work? Are they employed or students? What type of work do they do? What sort of income do they have? Income bracket, right? What's their psychological or, preference choices? What's their, psyche? What sort of culture, mindset do they have? Who are these persons? Because not everybody wants your product, eh? You might even be selling not to individual persons, but to companies or to other businesses. That's fine. You still have to profile those companies. Who are these companies? Where are they located? What size of company is it? What sector does this company reside in? What are the key, problems or pain points that this type of company typically has? And what problems do they want solved? So whoever you're targeting with your product, with your service, there's a group of customers who are most interested in your product or service. And that's usually not a large group. You may think it is a large group, right? Because we always pat ourselves on the back and say, wow, I invented this product. It's so great that everybody in Trinidad would love it. That's not the case. Not everybody in Trinidad wants your product or likes it, no matter how good you think it is, right? Your job is to figure out who likes it and wants it, and then profile them. And why is that important? Because when you could profile your customer, when come time to advertising and promoting and putting content on social media and Facebook, etc., you will be more precise in what you say, what you post, what imagery you use, what type of language, lingo, or nuances you put into your promotions so that it speaks, it resonates with that customer subset, right? And as I say, not everybody wants your product. So you have to figure out who needs it, who wants it, and who would be delighted by its features, right? So that's marketing. Value proposition and customer segment is number one, as the first thing you want to establish. when you do your stress test, or when you start to do your market test, that's what you're trying to find out there, you know. On the screen right now, what is that relationship like? That's what you're trying to figure out. Okay, we'll come to that. Okay, I'm going to come back to this slide. This is a value proposition canvas. Some of you might be in engineering class and you might have gone to Navneet Budai's entrepreneurship class. Maybe he does that. He talks about value proposition all the time, value proposition canvas. I know because he and I talk. And this is what that looks like, right? The value proposition canvas. I'm going to come to that. But just briefly, what I will say is this. Over on, let me get my laser pointer. Over on the left, that's your value proposition. Over on the right, that's your customer segment, right? It's basically the same thing as this slide when I had over on your left is your value proposition and over on your right is your customer segment. All I did differently on the next slide is formalize it by putting it in a value proposition canvas. That's a standard model in business, right? What is so big deal about this value proposition canvas? Well, the big deal about it is it allows you to look at the pain points of this customer segment. So this is who you're targeting. This is your target customer. What are their pain points? In other words, what is their problems? What do they want fixed? What are they hoping for you to come up with in terms of a solution? That's when you create a product that addresses those pain points. So this is your pain relievers dealing with those pain points. But customers want more than that. They want to be delighted as well. They want gains. They want, wow, that was so great. I mean, you solved the problems. Yes, I'll give you kudos to that. But also, look at these wonderful features. That's so nice. We love it. As the gains, as the extras. Right? And what are your gain creators? Right? So that's what this does. Okay? So when you create a value proposition here, this is your product or service. When you open the box of this product or service, it must solve the problem, but it must also delight the customers. So that's what creating value is all about. That's one aspect of creating value for your customers, right? Okay, I'm gonna move on. On the other side of the business model canvas is the operational stuff. Now, if I'm an investor, you came to me with a business pitch, and you said, I have this great idea. I'm going to target these customers, right? Here are my, pain relievers and gain creators, and you talk about all that. I say, that's good. I'll give you a point for that. But my next question to you is, well, how are you going to implement this? What resources and activities do you now need to do to run this business to make money? Because the products ain't going to sell itself. The products will not manufacture themselves. The service will not just sort of manifest themselves. It's people and machines and equipment and resources and activities and work that needs to be done that will make those products and services happen for your customer. They're not going to happen by itself. You have to now do work. Your investor wants to know, well, what work you have to do. The reason they want to know what work you have to do and what resources you need is because they know the work and the resources cost money. And when it boils down to brass tacks, you then have to explain how much money this thing is going to cost. Because if I'm investing in your idea or your business, I want to know how much this is going to cost. How much will it cost to start the operation in terms of buying equipment, etc.? And how much is it going to cost to run the operation in terms of rent, wages, electricity, raw material every month? That's what the investor wants to know. You first have to convince them that the product is good, it has strong value, that you've identified a feasible market niche that you're going to go after, and here's how you're going to target them. So you have to say that, right? So you got to convince the investor or the judge. You have to convince them of that. Once you do that, you now have to explain to them how it's going to work. And here's the activities. In other words, here's the work that we're going to do. And here's the resources we need to drive that work. And the work and the resources, as you can see in the diagram, the arrow is pointing down to cost drivers. All of those things cost money. So that's what you have to explain. If I'm a judge or if I'm an investor, I'm going to ask you, what is your investment ask? Or how much loan financing do you need? And you just can't pelt out a figure, well, I think we might need about $500,000. You have to explain how you arrive at that $500,000. And the way you explain that is you talk about your activities and resources. And I'm going to speak about that tomorrow. Right? I'm giving you a kind of an overview right now so that you understand this is what you will have to explain in your pitch. This is the business model that you have to explain. You have to say this is how the business will operate. This is the model for it. Right? It's like a model for anything. You have a model for a sports car versus a model for an off-road vehicle versus a model for a vehicle that travels on water versus a model for... You have different models for different things, right? You have a model for a house that gives you an upstairs and a downstairs. You have a model for all sorts of different things. You also have a model for a business. And different business models gives you different results, just like everything else, right? So you have to design your business model to give the result of what it is you want to do. The result is you want to sell a product successfully and make money off of it, as well as deliver solid impact to society. That's essentially what you want to do. That's the objective of your model, right? If I were a car engineer and I created a car that needs to drive off-road in bumpy terrain and all kind of thing like that, then I need to design a vehicle model that can do that. Certain amount of tires, suspension, shock absorbers, a certain amount of power, maybe four-wheel drive. I have to design a vehicle, a model that can do that. If I want my business to generate revenue and have maybe benefits to society and, help the planet at the same time, then I have to think of a model and design a model for my business that allows me to do that. So I'm creating a value proposition that has the ability to do that. I'm targeting a customer that can afford to pay for my value proposition. And I'm setting up activities, steps, essentially, and resources that allows me to deliver that value proposition and benefits to customers at a reasonable cost. Right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm creating a model for that. And that's what this business model canvas is all about. Essentially, a business model canvas. This is another representation of it. You see the direction of the arrows, marketing strategy on top, pointing towards activities. That's because everything that you do first with regards to your marketing strategy affects how the business needs to run. So the operational component of your business model, that's the activities and resources, that's the operational component, depends on the marketing component. You have to design the marketing component first. In designing your marketing component, you have to do the ideation and research stress test to confirm you're on the right track, and then design your marketing component. Once you've designed your marketing component, you can now design your activities and resources management plan. And once you've designed your activities and resources management plan, you will know how to allocate costs, because every item of resource, whether it's a computer, a food processor, a stainless steel table, whatever it is, costs money. And you have to get somebody to work the machine. That also costs money, because this person has to come to work every day, you pay them wages. Everything costs money. So you have to say how much it costs. right? Okay, we're gonna go into value creation now. I'm gonna take a pause for questions. Giving you guys 20 seconds to think of a question. It's okay if you didn't think of anything. It's okay if you did and you want to just throw it out quickly, I will answer. Not, I'll move on.
The for the stress testing and research, basically.
Yes.
Does that have to be like can it be like, can you review already done research? Or do you actually have to do the research yourself?
No, yeah. If you have already done stress testing, are you confident in the results that you have gotten? You can say, we have stress tested this product. We have done some market reviews already. Here are the results. You can bring that forward. That's okay, Elijah. But
Sure.
before you jump to that conclusion and say you're good with what you have, let me show you how we do the stress test and make sure that's what you did. Right? You might have done a good job. I'm not sure, but at the end of this week, when you've done all of the training, you can decide if you still need to go and do some sort of market research or stress testing. Stress testing takes two components in business, especially if you're an engineer. One component of the stress test is proof of concept. You want to make sure it works. So you stress test the equipment, the machine, the device, or whatever it is you made. And you want to confirm, yeah, it works. We've put it under this environment, under these conditions. We've tested it, and it works. That's one component. So now you have functional validity. Good. What you don't yet have is market validity. So you now have to do a different type of stress test, which is you either have to create a sample and get maybe a focus group to look at it, use it, test it, and confirm that they like how it functions, right? Or maybe it's a food item, they like how it tastes. If you didn't create a sample, then you have to describe your value proposition so carefully that you can now ask potential customers how they feel about this concept, about this value proposition that they created, and then get feedback in that way. So there's different methods. There's three main methods that you can use to do a market validity, a market stress test. Focus group, one-on-one interview with experts, and you could also just do a Google form and circulate it via WhatsApp, right? And I'm going to go into some detail on those, right? It's not that hard, right? Chanel says, following, no questions at this time. Thanks, Chanel. Okay, so let's create value now. So now that I've spoken to you about the whole business model canvas concept, the whole ideation and the process of entrepreneurship, that whole journey, now that you have a sense of that, what you really want to understand is, do I have enough value in the product or service that I've come up with? Is it worth it? Is it something that could win the prize? Is it something that could get the investment? Is it something that could be attractive in the marketplace? Have I created sufficient value here? So just because you came up with the concept doesn't mean you have sufficient value, because you could have created something that is just like everyone else's and there's no unique value, or you've created something worse yet that has lower value than what is already on the market already, because you didn't put in this feature or that feature or something like that, right? So let's try to create some value, or go through how you do that. Okay, so your value proposition really is, again, my little laser pointer, 1 second, find that. So your value proposition, this is what you're trying to create here. This is what you're trying to build. And it's central to your entire business, your business plan, your business model canvas, your entrepreneurial success. Everything sort of hinges upon this value proposition, and whether or not, from a pain reliever perspective, you solve the problems of the customer, and from a gain creator's perspective, you've delighted them. You've exceeded their expectations. They're going like, wow, boy, we didn't even see that coming. That was so good, right? So This is what you are trying to strive for. At the very least, solve the problems, and then on top of that, delight. And over here is your target customer. Remember, not every person on the planet has the same pain points that you're trying to solve, or feels the same desire for, you know, some unique value that you're trying to offer. Some customers just, nah, they're not interested. Some customers, they don't have that problem. So you have to figure out which of the potential persons out there in Trinidad and Tobago or in the region where you're going, which of the potential persons can be your customer. You have to decide who that is. And when you create your value proposition, you not only want to test it to see if customers like it and it solves their problem, but you also want to cross-reference who is saying, this is a real problem solver, it works well, I'm so delighted with these features, it's so great. Who is saying that? Is it males? Is it females? Is it employed, unemployed, professionals in the agriculture sector, professionals in the medical sector, you know, persons who live in the East, persons who live in the West? Who is saying that? When you interview or survey or stress test, you're trying to narrow down as best as possible who are these persons. Because before that, all you had is your idea. You're trying to take that idea. You wake up in the middle of the night, or you know, you just finish a class and something dawned on you and you say, wow, I have a great idea, whatever that was. That idea is usually just sort of at a vision perspective at the start. It's very cloudy, it's not fully formed. It's not crisp as yet. Only when you have your ideas very sort of defined and crisp, can you then say you have a value proposition that you could talk to customers about. Okay? Let's close the laser pointer. Laser pointer, don't want to close. Close. Okay. Moving to the next slide. So let's talk about ideation. Where do ideas come from? And I say this to students and entrepreneurs all the time. Have an open mind. The more experiences you have living in the world, the better your ideas are going to be. The more time you sort of take to understand people, markets, opportunities, problems, you know, the environment, nature, science, you know, even going to parties, right? The more time, the more experience you have in the world, the better you are at sort of, you know, conceptualizing some good ideas. But we are only human. We can't experience everything, right? We don't have time on this planet to experience everything on the planet. It's really, really difficult. So sometimes you want to sort of pick a few lanes that you are very interested in. Maybe you are interested in the planet. Maybe you are interested in solving technical problems. Maybe you like socializing and having a good time, going to parties, and you see opportunities there. Maybe you are very philanthropic and you like to help persons in need, you know, disenfranchised, socially disadvantaged, and you like to help persons like that. Maybe you like cars, whatever it is that you know, fills your life and kind of gains you, you know, experience and, you know, fuels your passions, whatever that is. You know, spend as much time doing those things as possible, because then you really learn about it, you really understand it, and you become familiar with not only that sector, that body of work, but you also become very familiar with some of the challenges, opportunities, stresses, problems, trends, new technologies that are being developed. You become very familiar with. And the more familiar you are with it, the better you are able to sort of really narrow down on a worthy idea, on an idea that makes sense, that you can really sort of stand out with, right? But if you are too introvert, as most of us are, we tend to be introvert in the Caribbean because of the way school kind of programs us to kind of be sort of all polite and submissive and put up your hand to ask the teacher a question. You know, we kind of learn to be like that. But the more we are sort of expressive and engaging and sort of engaging the world and participating in the world, you tend to be more experienced and you can develop a lot more stronger and more relevant ideas if you are looking to go into business. Okay? So follow your passions is what I'm saying. You know, choose something. Some of you might like sports. Some of you might like nature and the environment. Some of you, again, you like academics and you want to pursue, you know, better ways in which, you know, learning experiences can take place, maybe online, maybe through some app or something like that, right? Well, here's a little chart that helps you to, you know, see how you should formulate your ideas and what processes you go through to get from a sort of a cloudy, you know, very sort of unclear idea to something that is focused. So right at the very top, you see something that says engage. And that's what I mean, engage with the world. Again, you can't engage on everything on the planet, but pick the things that you like, pick the areas that you really have some passion for and learn about it. Some people like the sea and they want to be marine biologists, so they spend a lot of time, you know, looking at sea anemones and fish and maybe dolphins, who knows? Right? So spend a lot of time engaging in what you love and you'll find yourself becoming, you know, very knowledgeable about it. And the more knowledgeable about something you become, you can even start to maybe empathize. That's the next line in the little chart there. Empathy is what gives you understanding. In other words, you feel the pain points, you feel the issues, you understand it deeply, you know, you probably have experienced it. You know, sometimes entrepreneurs and even students like yourselves come up with good ideas because you experience the problem yourself. You have felt it and you've decided, listen, I'm going to fix that problem. I'm coming up with this idea. And so you have empathized. So, you know, engage and empathize. Learn and understand about something before you decide you're going to come up with an idea. If you have not engaged, in other words, you really haven't spoken to people in the sector, you really haven't figured out, you haven't, you know, understood and empathized and worked in that space. Maybe you like music and you know, you've never worked in the musical space. You haven't created any musical lyrics or writing or anything like that. All of a sudden, you want to start a business in the music industry. You know, what gives you the necessary understanding, depth of insight, you know, understanding of some of the pain points and problems and market opportunities? What do you think will give you the advantage to be able to come up with a product or service in the music industry if you have no deep connection to that sector? If you don't have a deep connection to a sector, you're going to find yourself at a disadvantage trying to come up with the idea. Sometimes we think we are passionate about something, but we just see it on TV or YouTube and we say, hey, that looks good. I'm going to come up with an idea just like that. And you don't realize or you underestimate how much time and effort persons in that sector put in working in that sector. And you underestimate how much effort they have devoted to understanding those issues. And you know, sometimes you don't fully appreciate. And you try to come up with an idea in that sector. And when the judges start asking you, you know, very specific, detailed questions, you're not able to answer because this is not something you're deeply familiar with, right? It's like deciding you want to come up with an app. So it's good to come up with an app, but you really have to understand, not necessarily code and programming technology, but you really do have to understand what are the processes that are going to be involved in making that app successful. And so you must really understand what the customer is, you know, expected to experience and use and how this app will facilitate this person. So you really have to understand things deeply. Yeah. Okay, take care. Right? Once you engage and empathize, guys, the first formation of your idea, that first step where it says conceptualize, that's the cloudy vision. That's the first time you start thinking of a solution. That's the first step. That's where you want to get to. You want to get to that first step where you have, okay, I have a kind of a cloudy vision. It's not fully formed, but I like where it's going. Once you're there, it's now, that's where you try to now refine it and define it. And defining your idea is the step below that. That's where you get specific and specifically say what it is, like in one sentence. If you can't describe your idea in one clear, crisp sentence, then you still have a cloudy vision. You didn't focus yet. Defining the idea also means defining specifically, not just what it is, but what it does. And what are the features and benefits that allows it to do that, right? And that's where you have defined your idea. Only when you can specifically, very focused, say what it is, what it does, and what are the unique benefits that your concept has that others do not, and what features drive those benefits. Only when you can define that specifically can you then say in the last bar down below that you have a value proposition. Okay? Okay. So let me just pause a little bit for a question or two. Does anybody have any questions on that section so far? We all good? We okay? Yes? Okay. Super. So how do I know if something has enough value in it? I've created a product, maybe a device. Maybe I've created a service process, right? You come to me and you go by the receptionist, and then you start, you start getting the service that I have to offer, and you get a service process. Maybe there's a car wash, something like that. Maybe you created some new type of food and beverage, maybe a unique type of biscuit that gives you some energy or something, right? How do I know that I've created value, right? Here's what you want to do. As I mentioned earlier, value, let me get my little laser pointer so you can see where I'm looking. Your value proposition is meant to create pain relievers for your customer and also create new, gains, delightful features that they're so overjoyed and about, that it's so great, it works so well, that makes it stand out. So you're trying to create value that does these things. What are the pains and gains? What are the features that gives pains and gains? What are those? Could it be anything? Well, whether it is a gain or a pain, the fundamental aspects of any product or service will give it benefits. Whether it solves a problem or delights the customer, it will give benefits. And those benefits, really and truly, are derived when you consider some of these factors here. These are the list of things that I've documented that will help you to focus on where do I want to place benefits? Where do I want to create gains and pains? Where will that come from? So let's say you created a product or a device, even if it's a food product. The first thing it must be is practical. In other words, it must work. In other words, you say that this product will give me energy. Well, guess what? If I eat this product, I should feel as if I gain some energy. So does it do the job? Usually, when you are solving somebody's pain points, their problems, the first thing they want is practicality. In other words, they want this product to work. That's the first thing they look for. So pains, your product or service, it has to be practical. It has to work. So simple case, right? You decide to go with a car wash business. Well, it must be practical. I must be able to take my car and the service works. When I finish with the service, my car must look clean. It must look clean. If it's not clean, then the service didn't work. So it must be practical. Your service might be a little bit more than just cleaning your car. It might be a 5-minute wash, with buff and amarol and polish. Maybe that's what you do. But if you say that, if you make that claim, and that's a key pain point for me that I want solved, then when I come to your 5-minute car wash, that service must work. Otherwise, you didn't solve my problem. I could have just washed my car home, right? So it must be practical. The second thing you can look for in designing your product and service is reliability. You'll be surprised how many inventors or businesses create a product that is practical for the first 2 uses or first couple of uses. Then after that, somehow it just don't work the same. The reliability starts to go down. It starts to, the wear and tear kicks in so fast that, you can't depend on it anymore. I can't depend on it. There's low quality of something, right? It's just not good quality. I can't depend on it. It's not reliable. As Chipson, it's just not, I'm not happy with it. So if you're solving my pain points, I want this thing to be practical, but you bet your bottom dollar, it must also be reliable. I don't want this thing to work once. I want this thing to work all of the time. So it must be more reliable, the better. I know something is not going to work forever, but if I buy a car, I do expect to just get 3 years out of it. I hope to get maybe 5, possibly even 6 before I start to have to change major parts, right? So it must be practical and reliable. Thirdly, here's where I'm kind of entering into the gains a little bit, right? It must be scarce. For something to really be valuable, yes, it must be practical, must work. Yes, it must be reliable. I should depend on it. But the scarcity factor is what makes it of unique value. If it works and is reliable, but that is like the norm, then I can't give it any more value than any other product on the market. It's just like the same value. And no investor wants to invest in something that is just going to do the same thing that every other product does. And there's no uniqueness there, because now I'm just competing in sort of the rat race of business. And I don't want to do it. I want to have something that stands out so that I can invest in it and make a good profit margin. So it must be scarce. It must be unique. It must be of rare design. And its rare design doesn't mean adding more things to it. Sometimes we think we're going to make it unique by just adding, we're just going to throw things at it, just add more features, add more this. That doesn't make it more unique, You're just cluttering up the process and cluttering up the product with features that maybe customers don't want, that you probably didn't stress test properly. To truly arrive at something that is innovative, you have to think outside the box and you have to really empathize with the customer and engage with the sector. If you haven't engaged and empathized and you really don't truly understand, it's going to be difficult for you to differentiate. And you're not going to be able to come up with something that's scarce or of rare design, right? So you really do want to pay attention to, what does this customer really want? And how can you delight this person with something that's never before seen? Now, coming up with an innovation is harder, but if you can think of just some incremental change, it will help you to get that scarcity that you're looking for. What else is valuable? Well, practical, reliability, scarcity, but also how it looks, the attractiveness of it, the aesthetics, right? If you're going to sell me a product, let's say, again, a car. So yeah, I want it to be practical. It works, reliable, it works all the time, scarce, it's unique. But if it's all of these three, but it's a really ugly looking car, I may not be inclined to buy it. I may not be inclined to go for that vehicle because it's just not aesthetically pleasing. I have to drive in this car and people have to see me. And I don't want to be seen in an ugly looking car. Maybe that's my mindset, right? Maybe my mindset is a more practical customer and I just want this thing to be reliable and practical because I have to go off-road. Again, it depends on who your customer is and what it is you're trying to solve. But very often, aesthetics does come into play, especially when you're looking at delighting the customer. Okay? 5 and 6. All of these things will come to no value if the price is too high. So it must be cost effective. If it's not priced appropriately, then the value that you've created here really is not really perceived value by the customer because they will see all of the practical innovation solutions that you've put into the product that looks really good, functions really well. And when they look at the price, they say, well, that price is way too high for what I'm getting. So when a customer sees that a price is higher than what they feel they're getting, they feel as if the value is not there. And customers do that. They kind of quantify in their mind, even if they don't do it with mathematics, they kind of quantify in their mind whether or not they feel as if they're getting a good deal or not. You do it all the time. You just go to the grocery and go down the cereal aisle. And as you go through, I don't know, what there are different puffs and sugar puffs and raisin brands, you go down the aisle and you see $30, $40, $45, all kind of different price for cereal. And you will select one based on what it has in the cereal, whether or not it has raisins, what sort of flavor or, taste. And you will also, I almost guarantee it, check the price. And if you get all of the above things that you want, but the price is too high, you will put it back on the shelf and go and select another cereal that gives you a more appropriately balanced features versus price combination. That's how we think. That's how human beings think. And businesses do the same thing. You're offering us a contracting services to a company. They do the same thing. They look at what you offer, and then they check your price, and then they decide if to buy it or not. That's what procurement is all about. If I want to build a new building on campus here, I have to procure a contractor, and contractors now have to submit quotes. And in the quotes, they will say what they will build, how they will build it, how long it will take, how much manpower they will use, what machines and equipment they will use, and also their price. And if I were the UE, I would look at all of that and check the price and then choose one where not necessarily the lowest price. What I'm looking for is what's the price versus features relationship. I'm checking to see if that is appropriate and nicely balanced. That's what I'm looking for. So that's what cost effective means, right? Accessible is the convenience factor. You could create a product that doesn't have any of these features above. Has no practically, well, let's say you didn't focus on that. You didn't really focus on practicality, reliability, scarcity, attractiveness. You didn't really focus on that. What you focused on is accessible. It's easily accessible. It's so easy to get, right? I think that's why KFC does so well. I mean, they sell food. It's not the healthiest food. It's not always reliable. I can't say it's of unique design. I mean, there's options besides KFC chicken. But what I think they beat competitors on is accessibility. You could just, right here on campus, you could just go right now. Pay $40, you get a 2-piece with fries. Right? It's so easy and accessible. So accessibility also creates value for customers. I would go for something if it's easy to get. Even if it's not the most attractive, even if it's not the most healthy or / practical, right? Even if sometimes the chicken like a little dry, it's just so easy and accessible, right? Lastly, I may give value to something simply because who made it? It's like choosing between two pairs of shoes, one made by Nike and one made by, let's say, Reebok. I don't know how many Reebok fans we have out there, but I think most people, given a choice, if they see two pairs of shoes exactly the same for the same price, one marked Nike and one marked Reebok, most people will choose Nike because of the brand association and the sort of perception of better quality, better marketing, better, celebrity association with this brand. We would typically choose Nike, right? So brand does have value, brand appeal. Okay. So I just highlighted this to show you how important scarcity is. That's really important for your innovation factor. Eh? When you really want to stand out and create unique value, that scarcity is what gives you the innovation, right? Something that's different. Okay. Okay. I want to show you this particular slide here. How do I know? Now that let me get back my laser pointer. So again, you can see what I'm showing you. This is the same list of benefits. This is the value. Same list right here that I've just showed you that typically customers, they look for. They're looking for the thing, it must work, must be unique, reliable, attractive, etc., etc. This is what customers look for. How do you create something that is practical and unique? Well, these are the benefits over on this side, but these are the features that make those benefits happen. Benefits don't happen by guess. Benefits don't happen simply because you write it into the value proposition. It happens because you've put technology or systems or processes or material or craftsmanship or design aesthetics. You put that into design of your product. So if you want to make something that is more practical, maybe you have to invent some new technology to make your device more functional. In other words, practical means it functions and functions well or functions even better than your competitor. If you want to make something more practical, more useful, more user-friendly, that means you have to design some technology in the product to give that. Or maybe use some unique material to give that. Maybe it's your craftsmanship will give that usefulness. If you want to make something more reliable, just like practical, it means that it has to stand the test of time. It means it has to be used over and over and still work. It has to be strong. It has to be rigorous. It has to be of high quality. It has to be dependable. Well, how do you get that? You're going to use maybe some new technology, some type of material, maybe something in your craftsmanship of the product will give it that reliability, right? If you want to make something more attractive, this is your design aesthetic. How do you configure the design? Everybody heard of that fry pan that was invented in UWI? It's like an electronic pan. Everybody's heard of it? Let me check the chat. Yes, Abraham, I've heard about it. Yes. Others, you've all heard about the fry pan? Okay. But the fry pan is a musical instrument. It looks just like a pan, except it's all electronic. And you can actually play it with your fingers, right? It was, right, some of you have heard about it, right? It was actually invented by Professor Brian Copeland. Professor Brian Copeland, as you may know, was the previous campus principal before the current campus principal, who is Rosemary Bell Antoine, right? So Professor Brian Copeland invented this technology. It's a fry pan. It's a musical instrument. Well, guess what? What he designed is the music technology. The look and feel of that fry pan, and you could Google it, was actually designed by students in the humanities faculty. So what gave that 5-pound value is not just the electronic components that created this unique sound, which Professor Copeland invented because he's an engineer, but the design aesthetic, which was created by humanities students, creative students. They are the ones that created the look of it. And that is what gave it the attractiveness and that sort of value. So value can be created from how something looks. Okay. You can also, in terms of accessibility, let me get my laser pointer again. In terms of accessibility, you can look at your distribution and marketing strategy. Right? So how do you channel the product? Which stores do you go to? What shipping companies do you use? Do you use a distributor? How does the customer get it? Do they get it online, at a store, on an app? Where do they access this product? Right? So those are some of the things you want to think of to create value. Remember, value can be created as well simply by making something more accessible. To talk about this slide, I'm talking about, I introduced two things here. Benefits/value. This is what customers want. These are the features over on the left. The design features is what drives the value and the benefits. Yeah? Value means benefit. I pay for benefits. I buy a car because I want value. I buy a certain type of car because I want a certain type of value. In other words, I want the car to give me benefits. But I am not necessarily a technology expert. So I don't know what technology goes into the car. I know it has a lithium battery. I know it has this and that, right? I am no expert. I am a consumer. I simply want the benefits of using this car that works so well. You are the inventor. You are the one that create the design features. You are the one that puts the technology and the craftsmanship and the aesthetics behind this to give me that value. As a simple example, this is a face mask. It's a microdust face mask. And it's available on Amazon.com. As you can see, I get it straight from Amazon.com. It's just an example. But if you look at this product that is advertised on Amazon.com, get my laser pointer, you will see it's described in a certain way here. It starts telling you about the benefits that you're going to get. In other words, this is a value component. You're going to get comprehensive protection. Everybody see that? And you're also going to get easier breathing. And guess what? It has superior construction. And it's so comfortable design, longer service life. All of those things I would give value to. I love that. Comprehensive protection, wow, that's so good. Easier breathing, wow. Comfortable design, and it's comfortable too. Longer life, I like that. But that doesn't happen unless you create the features that makes that happen. So if you look at comprehensive protection, that's being driven by 4-layer activated carbon filter. That's the feature that you build. That's your value proposition. You created that in order for me to experience this value. Easier breathing. Well, guess what? One-way discharge valves. So in other words, it has a one-way discharge valve that allows me for more easier breathing when breathing out. Check this one. Comfortable design. Well, it has soft nose pad on the filters and adjustable snap-on nose clip. Those are the features that you build. So before you can start putting on features, you have to figure out, well, what benefits you want to give to your customers. And these are what the customers want. Customers want something that's comfortable. They want to breathe easier. They want comprehensive protection. They don't want to be wearing this mask and all kind of particulates coming inside my nose still, right? It must work. In other words, this is the practicality component, right? Longer service life. That's a benefit. And how does that derive? It's derived because it includes replacement filters, 7 sets of replacement filters, right? That comes with it. So this gives this mask a longer life, right? So the point is, when you come up with your idea, you have to define what it is. This is a micro dust mask, right? A 4-layer dust mask. That's what this is. In describing this now, you have to say, well, what benefits? Why would I buy this? Well, you will buy this because it has comprehensive protection, easier breathing, superior construction, comfortable design, longer life. That's why I buy something. I agree to that. You, the one, have to figure out how that happens. It happens because you've put in 4-layer activated carbon, one-way discharge valve. In other words, you've put technology in this, unique technology. The one-way discharge valve might be something that is of unique design that you put in there. Maybe you designed it and patented it, right? So it's your design that goes into this mask that makes it valuable. If you didn't put these features in here, I wouldn't get these benefits. And if I didn't get these benefits, this mask would just be a regular plain old mask, right? And it would be selling for the same price as everything else. Okay? So this is just an expansion of this particular slide, just so you could see it better, right? So when you design a product, when you define, let me go back up to this slide. I'm going to show you this slide. I'm going to skip to a slide very quickly. Going straight up to it. Here it is. Remember this slide. Before you can come up with a value proposition, you have to define your idea carefully. And I said you have to really carefully define it. Okay, this is what I mean. This is how you define your idea. You say what it is. This is a microdust face mask. So I know this is a face mask. Not just any old face mask. It's a microdust face mask. That's step one of defining your product. Step two is you have to say what are the benefits that this product gives. As a matter of fact, you should even say what it gives that others do not. But at the very least, you have to say what benefits it gives. And step three is, well, what features did you put into your face mask that gives these benefits here? That's what defining your product is. Because if I'm a customer, I'm not going to pay for something that is sort of cloudy or fuzzy or not fully formed in your mind. I am paying money for that. I will pay money, however, for a clearly defined microdust face mask that gives me these specific benefits driven by these key features. I would pay for that because I know exactly what I'm paying for. You could even put a price on this and I will be able to quantify it and determine if I'm getting good value for the money that I'm paying for, right? So when you define your product, this is how you do it. If you came up with a service, it's kind of the same, eh? So imagine you came up with a service. I don't know, maybe you came up with some sort of, like a car wash service. Keep it simple, right? Well, even a car wash service must work. And what is unique about your car wash service? Maybe you do a 5-minute car wash with full, silicone on the tires, Amarol on the dashboard, a full polish and buff, and your car coming out looking spick and span, even scratches disappear. Right? Let's say you decided that's what you're going to offer. That would be unique, a 5-minute wash that did all of that. Well, that's great. I would want to know, if you say you're offering that, how are you making that happen? So when you define that product, that service, if you're defining your service like that, the features that drives that has to be some unique process, some unique step that allows you, a series of steps that allows you to deliver that 5-minute wash and buff. Must be driven by something unique. Maybe your process efficiency, where your workforce or your equipment or something you do gives you speed of delivery at a very reasonable cost, so that your process efficiency You know, if I were an investor and you said you could do that, I would want to see your process map to see how you're achieving this, right? So this is really your process design. A service, unlike a product is driven by features. A service is driven by process. That's the only difference. Same thing on this side. Value, customers still pay for practicality, uniqueness, reliability, attractiveness, cost effectiveness, accessibility, brand. Customers still pay for that. But how you deliver that is different with a product and a service. A product, technology features, the type of material you use, the craftsmanship, you know, whether you use, you know, chip components or some unique ICT or whatever technology goes in there. But a service, the improvements to make a service great has to do with your process design. Maybe you have a unique step. Maybe you are just faster delivery. Maybe you have a lower cost because, you know, you hire staff that work at a lower cost. Maybe you just are just more effective at delivering your output, right? So something in your process design gives you the benefits. Okay? Right. We still have half an hour to go. Let me take some questions. That was how you create value. I'm going to go on to innovation next. Yes. Everything, Elijah. In business, there's two things, Elijah and everyone else, that I want you to think of as you come up with your idea, guys. It's, you gotta create value for your customer by putting in features, unique benefits. If it's a service, a unique process that gives you operating efficiency at a lower cost. You're trying to do that, yes. That gives you the financial feasibility of the product, right? That gives you, you know, it works and customers are willing to pay for it. Customers also want societal benefits. They also want environmental benefits. So whatever product you came up with, it's not all just the money and the capitalist dream. It's not all there. It's also the environment. These days with global warming, climate change, and all the different things that are happening around the world, look at our war in Israel taking place right now. That started yesterday, right? And you know, not to mention the one in Ukraine and Russia that's still going on. So we have problems in the world. Consumers, me and you, when we buy products more and more that are proven to not do harm to the planet. That's why when we buy the tuna, we check the tin to see if this thing is dolphin safe and not harming the dolphins, right? That's why when we buy shoes or clothes, we sometimes go and Google the manufacturer to see if they're using any sort of unfair labor practices and taking advantage of low-income countries where labor is cheap and they're taking advantage of women and children. Have them in these sort of sweatshops, right, to produce products. Nike get called up for that a few years ago, right? And they had to scramble to completely do over their manufacturing systems and processes, because they got called up for unfair labor practices, exploiting poor countries to produce their products for them, so that we here in the West could buy these fancy Nike shoes, right? Yeah, that the tuna one, absolutely. Tuna, the processes for catching tuna when it's open water fishing, that process of casting the net and even trolling does a lot of damage to the seabed and to other marine life like dolphins. Nowadays, tuna is usually grown like it's farming, aquaculture, offshore farming. So you see you have these offshore tuna farming facilities, way offshore, like a couple miles offshore. And they farm this tuna. So most of the tuna you buy is called farmed tuna, right? How do you know if your product has enough value for the cost? Kailon, that's the stress test you have to do. When you do your stress test, that is the exact question that you have to ask. You and I can't say that. We could only speculate. The more engaged and experienced and empathetic you are with a particular area of business, the more knowledgeable you will be, and you will arrive at a fairly accurate price. But the proof really comes when you do your market test. You have to describe your product to your customer and then ask them, what price will you think is a fair price for this product? And see what they say. Now, if you tell them, this is the product I'm offering, I can either offer it at $10, $20, $30, or $40. Which one, pray tell their customer, would you prefer? Guess what? All customers will say $10 because you've just given them a range of choices in which there was a lowest cost and a highest cost. And as human beings, we're always going to choose the lowest cost. We're not going to, at that stage, be reasonable or consider you and your business. All we'll consider selfishly is ourselves and say, we want that product at the lowest price. So that's why when you're doing a stress test, you don't ask the customer, which price would you prefer? And give them a range of prices, because they will always choose the lowest. What you need to ask the customer is, I'm not telling you the price. I want you to tell me what you think is a fair price for this product and see what the customers say. Right? That's how you ask that question. How can this apply to something that is not as tangible like creativity? Well, you can't sell creativity. It will not apply. What you can do is create something. You can create a product creatively, in other words, innovatively and uniquely, and it's creative, that's good. But at the end of the day, even if you've created something creatively, you must now have something. If what you're referring to is something like in the creative sector, like music or art or something like that, even though that was creatively designed and creatively manifested, at the end of the day, it is still a product. Music is still a tangible product. I can buy it, right? I can buy music. I can also buy art. It's creatively rendered, oil on canvas, like a Picasso, right? And I can buy it. Now, how do you value something like that? It's a little bit more tricky than if I, created something like a bottle of juice, because I'm going to sell you the product and price it based on the cost to make that bottle of juice, plus maybe a 20 or 30% markup, and say this is my price. That's easy. When Picasso creates a piece of art and pours his heart and soul into it, and then he dies, and 100 years later, and that art surfaces in the Paris Museum, how do you value it then? Well, the value could skyrocket, because now the value of that piece of art is really being affected by the feeling and the view and the brand and the market association and the sort of, the whole concept of, how does this art make one feel? And sometimes you can't put a price on that. People will pay big bucks for that, right? And sometimes the value of something seems to just skyrocket based on the perception of rarity and value. So when someone dies, like an artist, that work of art becomes very rare because you can't replicate it. The man died, right? There's no way you could make another Picasso or another, Da Vinci. The man dead. So that piece of art is very rare, extremely rare. When you have an original Casabon, or an original Da Vinci. That's a very rare piece of art. So the scarcity is what is driving price. And people, especially in certain sectors who are affluent and have money, they recognize the scarcity and they also have the means to buy it, so that the price keeps going up because it's almost like it's auctioned, right? So the value of it goes up. That's why when art like that, you don't go in a store and buy a rare Da Vinci, you go to an auction and you have to bid, and it's the highest bidder takes it, right? That's what happens. So things can become very rare, and the perception is that it's so valuable because it's so rare that it's really valuable and people pay for that. Most of the things we invent, however, are more practical and functional, and we price it based on its functional aspect. Okay. Okay, innovation. First of all, what I'll say is, remember, let me go back up to this. I'm going all the way to my original slide. I'm coming back to this, right? Going all the way back to even above, all the way to here. This one. This is the entrepreneurship journey. This is what an entrepreneur goes through if they follow the full process. And at step 9, they actually launch the business, having gotten the capital investment from an investor in step 8. And they've launched this business. And beyond step 9, having launched the business, they start generating a lot of sales and they become successful, really successful entrepreneurs. Like Bill Gates when he invented Microsoft, like Mark Zuckerberg when he invented, and in quoted commas, Facebook, right? So some entrepreneurs become really, really successful like that. But underlying all of those successes is the rarity and the uniqueness that gives something value. In other words, the innovation. So something that is more innovative as well as practical is what you're trying to achieve. This is what this competition is trying to look for. It's trying to look for some student or student team who've come up with an idea, who've created a value proposition that is so practical, yet so unique that it potentially has all of the hallmarks of being a great innovation. Now, let me explain the difference between an innovation and an invention. An innovation is basically the result of your conceptualizing, coming up with any original idea, whether it is a technology, a process, or a system, or some product. But only when you could come up with that product or service and sell it or put it in a commercial setting does it become an innovation. So when we say something is an innovation, it's only something that was invented and then sold. Then we describe it as an innovation. So if you look at the definition below where it says an invention, it's almost the exact same wording as the innovation above, except the invention has not yet been commercialized, right? It's not yet an innovation if it is simply invented and it sits on a shelf. If you invent something and it's still on the shelf, that's just an invention. Well done to you. The technology works. You've done all the lab testing. Excellent. Now you have an invention on your hands. Great. It only becomes an innovation when you put that either as part of a commercial process, maybe part of some sort of, maybe a manufacturing or service process as a component, or you sell it directly and make money off of it. Only when that happens does it be classified as an innovation, right? What you're trying to do in this competition is not make an invention. You're trying to create something that has the potential to be an innovation. Everybody understand that? Let me repeat that. For this program, for this competition, and for all investment that you may wish to pursue later on in life, your investor or your banker is not investing in an invention. They're not interested in that. They want to know, how is this thing going to make money? Or how is this thing going to impact society? How is it going to be implemented? What is your plan for that? So even though you didn't sell it as yet or put it in a commercial process, they want to know what is your business model that proposes this invention to function in a commercial setting. That's what they want to see. And if that business model canvas, if that business plan looks feasible, then you have, the potential to come out on top. So you first have to invent something or create something or come up with an idea. In other words, come up with your value proposition, right? You then have to stress test it to see whether or not and how it could be marketed. You then have to come up with your marketing strategy. That's one side of the biz canvas. And use that to determine your implementation plan, because your marketing strategy is going to inform you of how to implement this. Your marketing strategy will basically say, well, what are the features and what are the benefits? Once you know the benefits, you will know what features to put in there. And once you know what features to put in there, you will know what resources and work you need to do to ensure that those features are inside that product consistently. Right? That's how the whole business model works. Okay? Now, an innovation, like an invention, guys, can be a number of things. It doesn't always have to be a product. It doesn't always have to be this great new bottle of juice or this, it could be a service. It could be a device. It could be some software that you develop. There's a team at UWI that developed some new software and they patented it. It's a new type of fingerprint recognition software that they've patented. And I was helping them to present via a pitch deck to different entities. And we presented to the government, we presented to, who was it? Oh, TSTT and a couple others. So they're trying to get an investment for their invention so that it can become an innovation. And that's where they are. But there are entities on campus who are inventing things. There may be students in engineering who are inventing things as we speak and wish to bring those inventions forward into this competition to see if they could, come out on top, right? So you could invent something. It could be a product. You could come up with a new type of service, maybe driven by an app, maybe. You can come up with a device. You can come up with a software that does something like the fingerprint people. You can come up with a new process, like the way Henry Ford did with the production line. So Henry Ford did not invent the motor vehicle. He invented the production line. So prior to that, vehicles were manufactured one at a time in a room with a whole set of people gather around in this one vehicle, in this one room, make this vehicle, and one vehicle would be produced a month. And when it is made, it get rolled onto the showroom just to sell. And Henry Ford comes in, the same Ford where you see Ford motor vehicles. Henry Ford comes in and says, but it's nonsense. One vehicle a month, and look at the cost, that's too high. So he invented the production line so that the process for manufacturing vehicles now becomes almost like a factory process. One vehicle is rolled along the process line and it gets to each station, and it goes to each station, a new item is placed on that vehicle, so it gets built. Engine, by tires, by windscreen, by seats, by paint, everything goes along the production line. And at each station, as soon as one step is finished, another vehicle comes rolling around the bend to, fill the gap, and then that process takes place again. So it's a constant process. So that production line is how everything is produced right now, from ketchup, Coca-Cola to jumbo jets, right? Everything uses a production line. No one builds anything one at a time anymore, right? So Henry Ford did that, right? You can also invent some sort of new system. Okay, so there's different ways in which an innovation or an invention could come about, right? Now, there are two types of innovation, right? Incremental and disruptive. Incremental is where you kind of make a minor step change, you know, over time. So if you look at the picture above where you have those little shavers and you have the dates on it, you'll see how the dates change from 1965 to 1998 to 2006 to 2016, how the complexity of the shaver changes over time. It's like your cell phone. When cell phones first came out, you know, in the late 1990s or thereabouts, the cell phones that used to be around there, I didn't even have one, right? Although I used to have friends with one. Man, that cell phone was like a big piece of machinery, is like a big brick that weighed about 2 or 3 pounds with a big antenna sticking out. And you know, the amount of radiation you get from that cell phone is a wonder people didn't get sick just from taking a call. And incrementally, over time, that device moved from what it was then to the devices that you have right now. This sleek Apple or Samsung device with a, you know, a nice touchscreen, you know, it also has different camera features, and you could play music, you could, you know, you could store files, pictures, talk to people as well. There's so many different things. It's like your whole office. Now you could have ChatGPT on your phone and, you know, ask questions, also the different thing you could do, right? But that didn't happen in one shot. That happened because entrepreneurs and inventors made incremental change to the device over time. And that's how you arrive at what you have today. You can make a big step, disruptive change, moving from nothing into a flying car in one big step. You know, that would be a huge change. For this program, don't try to make any huge changes like that. Just go for something that is an incremental improvement. In other words, when you come up with your idea, I guarantee you, whatever idea you came up with, someone else has invented something very close to it already and is selling it. I almost guarantee you, very few entrepreneurs and inventors come up with something brand new out of the box. Most of you in this program, look at what you are trying to come up with, compare it to what already exists, and try to stand out with some incremental improvement, some incremental change that makes your product function a little better. Make 2 or 3 incremental changes to what exists. And that is what you want to try to do for a program like this. Don't try to make any big step changes, right? If you can and you did that, that would be really unique, right? Most of us can't do that. Okay, almost done. 10 more minutes. Innovation. Why do we try? What is the big deal with innovation? You know, why can't we just invent something or make something that works well, that it doesn't matter if it have 100 of those already? Well, as I mentioned before, if you are inventing something or making something or selling something that's basically the same as everyone else's, you're not going to be unique and you're not going to have competitive advantage. And investors and prize winners and person who offers prize money for winners, they're not interested in anything that is not unique. They're always looking for something that is different, that stands out. Why is something important? Why is it important for something to stand out? Because in the world today, guys, there are so many unfolding problems, unfolding challenges, as I say, global warming, geopolitical stresses. You have artificial intelligence emerging faster than you don't know what right now. And it's difficult to predict how things are going to turn out, right? In the world in 5 years, it's difficult to predict. And the successful people on the planet are going to be the ones who are more versatile and who can stand out and who can think quickly and who can adapt to different scenarios. The most successful people aren't going to be the persons who, you know, just came out of the university with a degree and they're hoping to get a job and just retire at age 60 in that job. That's not going to happen, guys. You're going to have to now be adaptive and flexible and constantly look for the new opportunities and how to adapt. And if you're an entrepreneur, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to have to try to, if you are successful for the first 2-3 years of your business, by year 4, you're going to have to adapt and come up with something new. That's what Apple does. Apple never comes up with the same phone and lets that run forever. They always come up with iPhone 10, then iPhone 11, and then iPhone 12. They're always adapting, because if they don't, they're going to be outcompeted. So innovation is what gives you competitive advantage and sustained competitive advantage, okay? Innovation can also lead you to come up with something that is so unique, so novel, that you have intellectual property, potentially something that can be protected. If you have intellectual property, it's possible, it means that you have something that you can legally protect. So for example, if you invented some new device or some new technology that works really well and is novel, it's unique, it's possible that you can put a patent on it that prevents anyone else from using your design unless you get paid royalties for it. It's like music. If you are Marshall Montano or, you know, Destra or one of them, and you came up with some really great music, technically, you are the owner of that intellectual property. And anyone else who uses that music commercially is supposed to pay you royalties for the use of that sound, that music, right? So even music is intellectual property. Now, there are different types of intellectual property. And I'm just going to skim through this. You don't have to patent anything for this program, but I'm just going to explain what it is. There are different types of ways in which you could protect your business concept, your innovation. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have patents, design patents, copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets. Some of you right now might have an idea or some invention that you think is worthy of protection, that you want to protect it. Then I would say to you right now, for this program, when we meet one-on-one, let me help you to come up with what you will say in your pitch so that you don't necessarily disclose anything that is too secret, that you don't even want the judges to know about, right? If necessary, and you need the judges to sign a non-disclosure agreement, then we can do that. But sometimes you may have an idea or you may have some invention that you think is worthy of protecting. And I just wanted to go through with you the different ways in which you can protect your concept. So a patent, and like a simple patent, as is indicated in number 1, that's a legal instrument. It's a legal document that protects the function or method of a product or device. In other words, it protects the function or methodology and of the operation. That's what it protects. As opposed to a design patent, which protects the look and feel of it, the appearance. So for example, that Coca-Cola bottle, that shape, that has a design patent, right? So you can't use, if you are Pepsi, you can't put Pepsi in a bottle looking like a Coca-Cola bottle, you know. You will be sued by Coca-Cola, right? If you have, you know, some certain things are designed in a certain way, it is patented, and the look and appearance of it becomes subject to legal protection. The Apple iPhone, the function of it in terms of certain component parts of it, maybe the touchscreen, maybe certain aspects of it, those functional aspects would also be subject to a patent so that no other company can use it. Unless, of course, they pay fees to whoever the inventor was, if it is Apple or Microsoft or whoever. If you want to use a touchscreen, put a touchscreen on your type of phone, you have to now buy the license to use that technology on your phone. Either that or invent your own and make sure it has enough difference so that it's not confused with the original design. So that's how patents work. Copyrights is like patents for music or for art. So if I did a painting or if I invented some lyrical, musical sort of melody, then I have the rights to protect that by a copyright. So all music by serious artists is protected by copyright. Art is the same way. Okay. Trademarks is basically like your little insignia, your sign, your logo. That Nike swoosh, for example, that little swoosh, that's a trademark, right? Reebok can't, all of a sudden put a Nike swoosh on their shoes and sell it. That would be illegal. You can't buy knockoff shoes with a Nike swoosh on it and expect that, there's no legal consequences. At least some people do. If you go to certain parts of the world, they will take that same Nike swoosh, put it on any old pair of shoes and sell it as a knockoff brand. That is in fact illegal, right? You're not supposed to do that. The reason people get away with that is because sometimes they hard to find out who is this person coming up with these shoes, right? But you can't use someone else's logo and mark once you have a trademark. Trade secrets are different. That usually happens in the food sector. So if you are, let's say, for example, KFC, and you have 7 secret herbs and spices, you are not protecting that by any copyright, patent, trademark, or design patent. There's no legal protection for that apart from don't tell nobody. That's the way you protect that. The way you protect your 7 herbs and spices, or your, I can't remember, is it 7 or 9 or 10, whatever. How many herbs and spices they have in KFC chicken? That recipe is protected simply by secret. Only certain people know the recipe. It's like Angostura bitters. It's not any fancy copyright, patent, or anything like that for Angostura bitters. You and I don't know the recipe for Angostura bitters because that recipe is kept secret. We will never know. Right? Even if we work in for Angostura, even if we are managing Angostura, we will never know because only certain people knows certain parts of the formula that goes into the recipe. So only when all of those formulas come together does the actual bitters product come to life, right? So that is protected by secret. How do you take legal action against a secret? Well, if somebody uses a formula that tastes exactly like Angostura bitters, and I am Angostura, I may have legal recourse to sue you for using my recipe. But then I'll have to ask myself, well, how you get that recipe in the first place? Because I kept it a secret. And if you found out, then it could be that the judges say, well, it's not so much of a secret if you're letting everybody find out what it is. And therefore you have no recourse. So it's up to me to prove that this person got hold of that secret illegally. Right? That's how that trade secret works. It's really tricky to protect. Teddy says 12. That's for the KFC. It's 12 secret herbs and ingredients. Okay. That's quite a lot. Okay. Last couple of slides. Sustainability. Whatever you come up with, guys, whatever idea, innovation, invention you decide to go forward with. Teddy says it might be 11. Well, I thought it was 7, so it's obviously more than that. So somewhere between 12 and 11. Anyway, guys, Last couple of slides. Whatever idea you come up with, the project that is going to be most attractive to the judges are going to be ones that the business model canvas demonstrates that this thing can be financially feasible if implemented. But the business model canvas also shows that this project can be implemented without harming the environment, right? Or without harming people, or using child labor, or something like that, or using animal testing, or anything that is now considered no longer acceptable. In the old days, it was acceptable to test, shampoo on animals and rabbits and all kind of things. Those things are no longer acceptable, right? We no longer are interested in supporting companies and products that are harmful or damaging to the environment or to people or to animal life or the oceans or the air quality or soil quality or anything like that. No, that's not to say it doesn't happen, eh? Otherwise, we have oil producing still, right? But investors these days are usually described as impact investors. In other words, they invest in money, but they also want positive impact on the environment, people, and planet. So what does it mean? When you come up with your product, you also want to consider, well, if I invented this product and I started to sell it and make money on it, how will it impact society? What would be the social impact? And how would it impact the environment, like the seas, the rivers, the forests, the air quality? What would be the environmental impact? And how would it affect maybe health and general safety, not only in the environment, but even in my own workplace? Would that be detrimental to the health and safety of my employees? I may even want to consider, even if my product is something that is good for the environment, I may be buying ingredients or raw materials from a supplier who is producing something that is not good for the environment, or maybe using methods that is not good for the environment or for his or her employees. So I may want to consider who my suppliers are as well. And I may also want to consider any other sort of partnerships and relationships that I might have for this business to see if all aspects of my business is being run and operated in a healthy, safe, environmentally friendly way and socially impactful way. So this is some of the things that your judges will look for. Not just you made a good product, it's practical, it's reliable, it's rare, it's accessible. All those things are good. You get points for that. But now you also have to say, how does this product or service impact the wider ecosystem? You have to say that. Otherwise, you will be sort of selling the product short, and you may sell your chances short. And this is now very important for all investors, bankers, even with some of the programs that we have right now with Republic Bank and Unit Trust and all that. One of the first things those CEOs ask is, when we work with entrepreneurs, can we ensure that these entrepreneurs are producing things sustainably? Everybody is so concerned right now at rising sea level, unusual weather events. Look, last week we had some unusual weather events, not so? Last week or the week before? Massive thunder and lightning. Where that came from? That is like almost like global warming kicking in there, right? Now they say we headed into an unusual dry season. We trying to avoid more like that. So products and services must be produced sustainably. So this is why investors are paying close attention to these things. So when you come up with your product designs, your services, product and service designs, you want to consider these things as well and put them on the forefront. As a matter of fact, you don't simply want to say our product does no harm to the environment. That would have been good enough 5 years ago. nowadays, consumers, investors, buyers, etc., stakeholders, they want you to say, our product benefits the environment. Here's how. Our product benefits society. So not only are we making money and it's making profits and it does well and it serves that pain point and gain creators for the consumers, besides the direct consumers, our product benefits society. It benefits the environment. Here's how. That's what you have to say as well. Okay? And how does it benefit? You can look at your carbon footprint. I think this is my last slide. Yeah, it is. You can look at your carbon footprint, your ecological footprint, or your water footprint. And carbon footprint is basically how much greenhouse gas emissions are you pumping out to make this product, or your suppliers are pumping out, right? How much land and water resources are you using to create this product or service? How much water you're burning to set up this car wash business, right? What about water footprint? How much fresh water is being polluted? You know, maybe you have waste material that is going into freshwater supplies or going into the subsoil, right? How is that being impacted? So these are some of the environmental things, but from a social perspective, you want to pay attention to people, okay? Okay, I'm going to stop share now. That was my last slide. I'm a little bit over time. Okay, guys, we've come to the end of this first training session. I could do 5 minutes of questions, 5 or 10 minutes. You guys have any questions or comments you want to come up with?
Yeah, good question. I think on the UE Ventures app or something, because I actually registered for this in summer, but then I know they canceled it. Well, postponed it to now.
Yeah.
Remember it had like some like submissions on the app itself, well, on the website itself. Are we still required to actually go through those submissions? I haven't checked it in a while, so I'm not sure if there's like a deadline for that or something.
Yeah, so the submissions are definitely going to be via the UE Ventures app. So if you have created a folder there just before summer, you should be able to go back and access that folder. The only thing is, if you forgot your password and you try to log in, you are going to want to maybe hit forgot password, and so that the app can send you back a new password. All right. If you need to get back in and you want to know how to get back to your folder within the app, I will share with you how you get there. There's a little link that you can use. I'll just put it on the meeting chat tomorrow so that you can get that. I don't want to go searching for that right now. It's basically connect@ueventures.com, and that will take you back into your login page. I just want to make sure I have the correct number of words and hyphens, etc., so that I'm going to put that on the chat tomorrow. Okay. Teddy has a hand. Yes, Teddy.
Hi, yes, good night. I was wondering, right, based on what you would have said during the presentation, I wanted to change the business that I actually applied to the program for. Is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, just so if you applied and this is what we know you applied for, but when it comes time to actually doing the assignments and doing it, essentially, you have to do a pitch deck. You have to create a PowerPoint pitch proposal, which what you have to do that describes the business model canvas and the benefits of this idea. It talks about your research that you've done, market research, and it talks about who's the target market you're going to go after. I'm going to describe how to do a great pitch deck between tomorrow and Friday, tomorrow and Thursday. And then Saturday, I'm going to talk about how you do the financial analysis component, right? So you are going to get that information. But yes, you can't change your idea. Once you do your pitch deck, that is it though. That is what you're going forward with, right? That's the one. Okay, let me just take, Karen, hold on. Let me just answer Rome. Rome Mitchell said, is there a limit to the amount of protections I can apply for a product? No, you can. There are some patents have a patent. Some inventors put a patent on their product in every part of the world. They have a Trinidad design patent, a US design patent, and a UK design patent because they want to operate in different parts of the world. But I think what you're asking is, can I apply for a trademark and a design patent? Well, it's two different things. If you, let's say you invented Coca-Cola, you can have a trademark for your Coca-Cola, the words, in little italic, fancy kind of old scribbly type of lettering. That Coca-Cola, that is trademarked, eh? And Coca-Cola also has the bottle. That's a design patent. So Coca-Cola has the design patent for their bottle. You can't use their bottle, right? That's unique. But also their Coca-Cola, that word Coca-Cola written in that nice fancy lettering, you can't use that neither. That's trademarked, right? So yeah. All right, somebody else had a hand up.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
Sir, how soon can we have the one-on-one sessions?
You can book there. I got a session today. I had 2 sessions today. So you can go to the platform you registered, I think, going onto the entrepreneurship unit, and you registered for this program, and it took you to a link that took you straight into the Ventures app, right? Within that same online platform, there's a booking schedule, there's a booking calendar that you can click on it. My calendar will open, and if you see a free slot this week, you can plug that in one time.
Okay, thanks.
Right? So yeah, start making your bookings. I actually closed off the calendar for this Friday, but I'm gonna leave it open into next week as well, in case you don't get a chance to book with me this week. Right? Okay, so that was Karen. Anybody else has any other questions? It's okay if you forgot your question or you're not too sure you want to answer it right now, because I know it's a bit late. Tomorrow, if you have the questions, we're going to be here the same time tomorrow, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And tomorrow, I'm going to go through in more detail that business model canvas, because that's at the heart of your proposal, right? That's how you're going to implement your idea, right? So we're going to go through that. Then on Thursday, I'm going to try to jump into doing your pitch. Yeah, these sessions, Abraham, are being recorded, and I will talk to Joel, who works with me, my admin, so that he will probably put it on the website via a link, so that you can go and just review the recordings at any time. Right? Oh, Joel is just saying it would be available tomorrow. There you go. That's efficient.
Yeah, hopefully by tomorrow morning it will be available. I'll send an email to everyone because I'll post it up on our YouTube channel. So I'll send an email to everyone tomorrow, and I'll also put it up under the resources for the website.
Excellent. So service efficiency. That's what you call that. Right? Okay, one more question before we wrap up. No hands up? Going once. Going twice. Okay, then that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I hope this was beneficial to you. I'm going to see you again tomorrow, same time, 5 to 7. And as I said, we're going to talk more about the business model, and we're going to go into some detail on that. So everybody be safe. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.